Afghanistan. Let's get to our panel this morning now, and we've got from Melbourne, Liberal MP Josh Frydenberg, and in Sydney, the Labor MP Ed Husic. Gentlemen, good morning to you. You've heard Laura's interview there with Colonel James. Josh, I want to ask you first of all, it's pretty clear, isn't it, that Australia's announcement is fitting in with the broader ISAF withdrawal. Colonel James said as much in that interview just there.
Well, that's right. And look, the coalition's going to get a confidential briefing this morning. Our position is if the Australian Defence Chiefs have advised the government that we can withdraw early but remain true to our military objectives in Afghanistan, then that will be supported. Let's remember why we went to Afghanistan in the first place, because we did not want it to become a safe haven for terrorism. And over 100 Australians have lost their lives in terrorist attacks since September 2001. And in each case, Kieran, the perpetrators of those attacks had links back to Afghanistan. So it's been in Australia's national interest to be militarily involved in Afghanistan, and we've made a real difference on the ground. I went to Afghanistan last year and I saw firsthand the schools that were being built for girls in Afghanistan, the other infrastructure that was put in place. And I think the Prime Minister made some important points in her speech yesterday when she said today, now 85% of Afghani people have access to basic health services, whereas under the Taliban, only 10% of Afghanis had access to the same medical health services. And as well as that, the lives lived by the Afghani people are much better off. They're living longer. In fact, life expectancy has risen by 5 years, as well as the security situation, while difficult still and challenging, is better than it was. And I think what we just heard then from Colonel James was pretty positive stuff about the degrading of the insurgency in Afghanistan.
Okay.
So
well,
certainly,
Josh,
I think this is very positive.
You have said something pretty similar to what Tony Abbott said yesterday, and that the opposition is going to get that briefing today via Air Marshal Mark Binskin, the acting chief of the Defence Force. One of your colleagues, though, in fact, the acting defence spokesman, Senator Brandis, who is going to receive that briefing today, on this program yesterday, he said it would be shameful if this withdrawal was being done for political convenience. Now, given what you've said, given what Colonel James has said about us fitting in with a broader ISAF withdrawal, was that a bit rich from Senator Brandis to make those comments yesterday?
Not at all. And I think, we're verbaling Senator Brandis if we're going to say anything. But the fact that he is totally on message with Tony Abbott as well as Julie Bishop and others in saying we want to withdraw early from Afghanistan only if, Kieran, that military objectives are kept intact. And if that's the advice of the Defence Chiefs and Senator Brandis will receive that briefing this morning, then that's going to be a positive thing for Australia.
Ed Husic, what do you think about what Josh Frydenberg had to say there on a number of fronts? I suppose one of them is it relates to something Christine Milne said yesterday as well, where she said the operation's been a failure at every level. What did you make of those comments? And I suppose you're much closer to Josh's analysis than Christine Milne on this.
Well, I think on a number of levels, if you look at it, particularly from the outset, the reason why we went into Afghanistan is that people were using Afghanistan as a base to plot attacks against others in other parts of the world, and these are horrific attacks that have killed Australians and killed other people. If you look at the course of the last 12 months, 18 months, but particularly, over an extended period, what's happened is you've had the dismantling of Al-Qaeda's leadership, particularly in terms of the death of bin Laden and other senior leaders within Al-Qaeda who no longer are able to direct operations, particularly using a base in Afghanistan. So you've had that. You've had the increase in terms of military capability and particularly on the ground domestic policing, a lot of which Australia has had a big role to play. That's occurred as well. But Josh also mentioned in terms of basic access to basic health services, which the Prime Minister outlined yesterday, 85% of people now having access compared to 10 under the Taliban, life expectancy up, and 7 million Afghan children now have access to schooling, many of them girls. So we've, on a range of levels, either the military ambitions and objectives of this exercise or this of what we've done in Afghanistan, the build of infrastructure, the improvement of people's lives, on those levels I think there have been scores of different successes, and it has come at a high price admittedly, but it has been something that we've needed to see through, and now, as Colonel James has said, this isn't an event, it's a process in terms of transition, and this will be built upon at the NATO ISAF summit in Chicago in May.
So, Ed, what did you think then of Christine Milne's statement yesterday that it's been a failure at every level?
Oh, I completely reject it. I think it's been important on a number of levels, as I've outlined a few moments earlier. There'll be people that want to make comments like that don't have a connection to reality. I think when you look at it objectively, there have been a number of important milestones reached, progress made, and we've needed to do that job. And if you look at it, since 2009, it has been a case of a changed strategy, but it's been one of focused on working with the Afghan people themselves. I noted that the Prime Minister yesterday made reference to General Allen, the military commander of the ISAF forces, who said that effectively, foreign forces have never succeeded against insurgency. It's really been about Indigenous forces taking the lead, and the transition has been the linchpin to the strategy. So there has been a very considered approach, relying on counterinsurgency over the last few years to deal with and get us to this point where we're at now.
Josh Frydenberg, there is I'll ask you, you can make a comment, but I want to ask you about something Ed said there about the local forces having to take the lead, because there are so many other different elements in there. It's a patchwork of regional powers at play within Afghanistan. Pakistan's Haqqani network is really, many people believe that they were responsible for that attack in Kabul just a couple of days ago. So you've got Pakistan wielding influence, India backing the Karzai government very strongly as well. Is this something you think that has to be fought out in the end in the region and by the local forces there?
Look, what you're pointing to is the complexity of the situation. I think the Prime Minister accurately referred to Pakistan as being a key player in resolving some of these disputes yesterday in her speech. And look, the point is the Afghan National Army, together with the Afghan National Police, number over 300,000. They've been trained by the best that Australia can provide. And I think they, according to Colonel James, are making a real impact on the ground. They're starting to lead their own missions and get results. So, yes, this is not an easy situation here, Kieran, but I think that we have to have confidence in the Afghan National Army and the Afghan National Police. But I do want to say on Christine Milne, she lives in fairyland. The Greens have absolutely no idea about Australia's military obligations and Australia's military objectives. Look, they want to end the ANZUS alliance, Kieran. Of course they don't want us to be in Afghanistan. They didn't want us to be involved in Iraq. They wouldn't have wanted us to be involved in any other security situation where we are going abroad to make Australia a safer place. Look, the Greens don't even deserve to be part of this debate because they're so out of sync with what our military are telling us and what Australia's international obligations require.
Josh Frydenberg, Ed Husic, stay with us. We're going to take a break and we'll be right back here on AIM Agenda. Thanks for your company this morning. The International Monetary Fund, in its latest World Outlook, has upgraded its forecast for international growth, also given the Australian economy a healthy report card. Rob Henderson from the National Australia Bank had this reaction this morning.
The World Growth Outlook has been upgraded overnight by the IMF to a growth rate of 3.5% for 2012, so that's a 0.25% upgrade. In Australia's case, they've actually shaved our forecast a fractionally from 3.3% down to 3%, but that's a real standout amongst the global economy in terms of advanced economies. Most of the growth in the world output is likely to come from the developing world, particularly China and Asia, and Australia amongst advanced economies still looks good.
Josh Frydenberg, that's the report card. The government's got to get some credit for that, doesn't it?
Absolutely not, because, they've been gifted a fiscal position from the previous government with no government debt and have quickly run that all down. So now we have $136 billion of debt and they're borrowing $100 million a day. The fact is we do have a two-speed economy. The fact is we do have falling productivity, and the fact is even this IMF report downgraded Australia's growth projections. So, look, it's just not good enough for this government to introduce 20 new taxes, including in a economy-wide carbon tax to keep borrowing and to be spending money badly. That's the message, Kieran, for the Australian taxpayers, that they want us to benefit greatly from this mining boom, from the China boom, the industrialisation of China and India, which is sort of unparalleled in the last century. And we need to take better benefit of this growth than we are. And our concern in the coalition is that Wayne Swan and Julia Gillard have no idea how they are going to boost productivity. All they want to do is reintroduce regulation into our workplaces, put penalties on small businesses employing people, and the fact is we do have falling productivity. So I don't think it's a good report card at all. I'm sorry to say, it's not good news for the government.
Ed Husic, well, the government the Treasurer has released some details this morning that the government, in terms of productivity, keeping older workers in the workforce, is going to pay incentives to employers to keep workers over 50, to give them a better chance of getting jobs?
Yeah, absolutely. It's part of the process that we've had of boosting the range of skills available to the workforce and lifting and being able to use, in particular, the skills of older Australians who've built up experience over a number of years and be able to inject that into the economy. I have to say I have, in my electorate, people often concerned, older people concerned, 40 plus, 50 plus, who feel that they're not being given the chance in the workforce. And I think if we've got opportunities to give incentive to employers to bring people in, that's fantastic. But I just want to go back to the point about our economic performance. I mean, effectively, the big message out of what Josh said is that the coalition will boo Santa. Any good economic figures that come out, these guys cannot handle. And they're only happy if jobless numbers go up, if growth goes down, or if interest rates are going up, like they've been egging on this week, banks to increase interest rates.
Okay.
And further, no, well, hang on a second, Kieran, but they want to also further see dented confidence in the economy. We have Wayne Swan going to the IMF and G20 today, and when he walks into that room, he takes with him the stats that show Australia is leading advanced economies when it comes to growth and job numbers as well.
I've got to wrap you up there, Ed. And Josh, I'm sorry we're out of time this morning, but thank you, gents, for your discussion on a range of issues there. I've got to, I did speak to the New South Wales Opposition Leader, John Robertson, this morning about the recent extraordinary spate of gun crime and attacks in Sydney. Let's play that for you now.